Hi, and welcome to the Deep End, Tuesday, November 28th, 2023, on to week 13 in the NFL. That's playoff time in some high stakes leagues, close to playoff time for most everyone else. Mike Shope and Evan Krautwurst here. We'll take a quick look at the Deep End Invitational standings. Not much has changed. We will then talk about some playoff strategy for our friends in the high stakes world, FFPC playoffs. There's a lot to figure out in some of these leagues if you were lucky enough to make it. And then also our usual team-by-team roundup going into Week 13. 6 teams on bye, some interesting situations, and a new and not good injury announcement reveal from earlier today. Mike and Adam, thanks for joining us. This is The Deep End.
Yeah, injuries abound, and last night is like the first night and the only night that I really do it all year, where I stay up till because I want to see everything turn over. Like, did I make the playout? Like, I counted each number, but was I off by a half a point? Like, just let's see if I got into the playoffs. Around 1 a.m., everything really started to roll in and be finalized. So last night was a late night, but a exciting one.
I love that.
Yeah, I figured you would.
I have a good enough mind, but reading comprehension has never been my strong suit. So what I do is, it's numerous teams where you're trying to figure out, okay, but do I have the points lead? But then this person, how safe is my lead? How big is the margin? And I just end up going over and over and over and over that, just mindlessly almost sometimes, not productively. Just forever. Like, I can't remember if my team, the Decorative Pickles, has the points lead, or who are we playing, and can anybody catch me? And then you get to today, if you make it, which that team did, I'm happy to say. Nice. And then you figure out, okay, well, there's so many things. How much money do I have? How much money do my 3 league opponents have for these 2 weeks of bidding? Because bidding it's limited to the teams that qualified at this point. Did my team qualify for the 15 to 17 weeks sprint, the playoffs, the championship round? If I did, then maybe my strategy is different than if I hadn't. I mean, I'm not trying to rush through all these. There's so much in this way, and we all could probably learn a lot from you in terms of like how you look at these teams once they've made it and what are the key things you're looking for.
Well, that's like today is nice because you get to eliminate, unfortunately, you get to eliminate a very high percentage of your teams now, and really focus on, because growing up in fantasy, you used to the part of the fun was just drafting it and then babying it through the year and loving it and nurturing it. Well, when you're in high stakes and when you're in high volume, you don't really get to do that except for maybe your highest stakes team. So now you can kind of lock into the players that you really need. With whatever teams have advanced. Unfortunately, I have 2 big ones with Jonathan Taylor, but we'll get to that. And then I always like to be interested in look at, this probably isn't super helpful, but I like to look at the teams that just missed out. I'm looking at, I did really well actually this year in the fantasy pros. I got 5 of 11 teams through.
Oh, good.
So I thought that was pretty nice. And I was only expecting to get 3 or 4. So be able to see, that game last night was so bad as far as like fantasy, what people needed. Like, I had a team that got through. I was up 16 and I was facing like Dobbs and maybe a running back, and they only got like 12 or 14. I never thought I was going to win that one. So it's fun to go through and look. I had one team that was a 5th place team, finished 1 out of the money in fantasy pros, and 8-4. That's the cool thing about a lot of these leagues, man. Like, it's 8-4, but it didn't score. Only had 1,562 points, which is not a lot. But
that's my team that with you and I shared, I think, maybe.
No, but I can look at that one too. That one is
that team was also 8-4, I believe.
That one was 8-4 with 1,523. Yeah, and mine
almost
was
the same. Mm-hmm.
Almost the same. Yep. And they don't deserve to get through based on scoring, but man, it'd be nice to get through with an 8-4 record every now and then. But yeah, it's fun. It's a wild night. And now you can really lock into, I never do waivers Tuesday morning this week with being able to nurture those teams. And now I might have to go back through with the Colts news.
Yeah. 8-4 and a miss you got to be careful how you say it, because like, well, I had a team that was 8-4, but we only had this many points. That team wasn't good,
Right.
right? Like it's in golf when somebody will tell you, well, I shot an 87, but I had a 9. No. There's no but. You had an 87. That was your score. That is what it is. And, players that we interact with, they know what that means. We had a low-scoring team, that deep-end duo team, but still had to look at it. Just like our main event team, which unfortunately did not get there either, had to look at it based on record, but never on points. And it's hard to keep that up. It's hard to keep winning when you really don't have the goods. So unfortunately that team fell short too, but I also spent time on waivers today. I sometimes will do it on Tuesday morning, but a lot of what I was focused on, like I mentioned earlier, is how much fab do I have? And then who's around me? I have a Fantasy Pros playoff where the team finished as the 2, and the team at 3 is just destroyed by this week 13 bye week schedule. Like but he or she has the most money by a lot. So, in Fantasy Pros, you don't win a dime if you didn't get top 2 and you lose this week.
Yeah.
Like, it's over. So that player, like, if that's me, I could even overhaul the whole thing, because I've got nothing else to do, but the team isn't necessarily that great. And, could you ever cut somebody like Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, one of these quarterbacks on bye? Probably not. But depending on what waivers looks like, you could get super aggressive. And in this case, as that player's opponent, I don't have the money to do much about it, but I can try to outbid the 3rd place guy or the 4th place guy strategically. I have teams with 2 kickers and 2 defenses. I want to make sure I've got the insurance, but I think I might cut one of my kickers or defenses this week and then get back to it next week, even if I lose this week. If the team is qualified, you just keep going.
That's right.
So, there's so many different ways to play it, and the format is so great. I mean, if your team was 8-4 and finished 10th in points, you don't belong in this. I feel anyway.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and it's fun. Like I said, I've got 2 out of those 5 teams. I have 2 1s, a 2, and then a 3 and a 4. So like the 1s and the 2, I'm looking forward to. Obviously, you want to have a lineup and all that, but I'm getting my defenses set for the 3-week race and all that type of stuff. One of them is a Josh Allen team. I'm lucky enough to maybe have Sam Howell on that team, so I'll be okay. But you go on waivers, like even if you wanted to move off of some of these quarterbacks, like I've got one where I got to start Geno Smith. Like who am I going to add? Bryce Young? Like he might not have a job in 2 weeks. So it's just hard. Like I don't want to start Geno either. But yeah, it's just hard because with the way the waivers work, if a player's dropped after week 10, you can't add them again. So there's, even if you want to move on from guys, it's just, especially at quarterback, there's just no starters available.
Geno Smith Thursday night at Dallas, by the way. The only name for that question to me that was probably available is Browning. They play Monday night in Jacksonville, but like even Aiden O'Connell is on bye. You don't know what the Patriots are doing. You really don't know. Giants are on bye too. I mean, so many teams, like we talked about some last week, really just, you can't trust Cleveland, like who's going to start. Jets, you just don't know. So you end up making an uncomfortable move there. Well, anything else on this? And as far as last night goes, I was texting you about it. My friend Mike and I had a team that was in, I don't know if you need to tell the whole thing, but we needed 26 from Dobbs and Hawkinson to win our game, which would have put us in first. And had we lost that game because of who we were playing, we would have finished like a 3 seed. So we were in the playoffs, but first and second is a big difference. I mean, you're through automatically with a chance to make that money. And we went out to watch this game together. Like it's the last week of the season, and we sit down at a bar for Dobbs and Hawkinson. I mean, it was 4 picks by the 3 at halftime or 4 at halftime. Like he was negative for the first hour, and Hawkinson hadn't caught a pass. So we're sitting here needing 26 points, and it's 10 o'clock, and we need 28 or something. It was so bad. So we left, and Hawkinson started to get some cheapies. Yeah. And then late in the game, he caught one to get them, inside the 20. And I my friend and I had given up on communicating for the night, but I texted him right there. I said, I think a Hawkinson TD, depending on yardage, might get us there. And he scored on that play. It was like a 17-yard touch. Spoiler, I'm sorry if I'm telling anybody what happened in this game. They lost, but he scored on that play, and we won by 1.5 or something like that.
Incredible stuff. Looking over rosters, maybe just kind of continuing on this topic. So we talk all preseason about like, hey, we want to avoid, especially in maybe the Fantasy Pros format where there's no money to third or fourth place. Do we want to avoid these week 13 and week 14 buys? Because they're so important. As I'm I'm just looking at the teams that are through. I've got a team that I don't have Fields. I don't have James Cook, some stuff like that. But I feel like I've got, Kyren and Sam Howell to throw in there. I don't feel as bad as maybe you might have at the beginning of the year thinking forward. And like we talked about over the summer, the team that you're playing probably has guys on bye. Maybe you're playing against a Josh Allen team or a Lamar team or a heavy Bills stack or a heavy Ravens stack where it's like, okay, well, they got through too and they're crippled also. So maybe like I got a team I'm playing against the guys got Saquon and Jonathan Taylor now. And it's like one's on a bye, one might not play. It's like you got there, you're a 3 or a 4 seed, but now, it could be an absolute mess and could be a waste. What are your kind of vibes as you're looking at all this stuff?
Well, that's where finishing top 2 in the Fantasy Pros makes all the difference because you don't have to sweat it so badly. I mean, you're in trouble if you're having these bye week problems in week 13, but it's not over for you, right? Because you'll have weeks 15 and on. And another team, like in the situation I described earlier, we're talking about, they have to win this week or it's over. So, I don't like caring about it too much, like 95% at least. I don't care about the bye weeks when I'm drafting because you like Kyren Williams in your case, you expect to be, deft enough to fill it in, and you're cognizant of that week and the bye weeks ahead in the playoffs. You're sort of processing everything, so you can come up with plan B, plan C, etc. And maybe it's too minor of a point, but if my team that didn't care about it's got a bunch of week 13 buys is in trouble this week, well, I've theoretically gotten one more week out of all these guys this year than you have with your team that wouldn't draft guys because of the week 13 bye. So, I mean, Justin Fields got hurt. That happens, of course, but I got a full season. I got one more week of points out of those guys than somebody who looked at it differently. Again, I think that's a minor thing, but it can be said. I don't want to it's so far off, if week 3 or something were the most critical week, then maybe it would be different. But so many things are going to change by week 13 that I really don't care about the bye weeks at all.
Yep.
And so in Fantasy Pros, yes, top 2 get through to weeks 15 through 17, the championship sprint. The teams that didn't get, the teams that finished 3rd and 4th in your league, and if those teams lose this week, that's it. League playoffs, first prize is $1,500. Second prize is $500. It's not bad. Third prize is you're fired. Main event, though, you win this week, you're guaranteed wherever you finished. I mean, it's the same first part where the top 2 go through automatically. But if you win this week in the main event playoffs, you're guaranteed a main event entry next year. And, a couple $1,000 more potentially if you end up choosing that option. So, I mean, they're both big, but main event at least offers you like some real juice here going into the league playoffs.
And it's that they offer you that third place prize, right? Like
right, 500.
That could be, and that's something that we talked about when we've had Alex on the show, Kaganowski, one of the owners and founders of FFPC, is having that third place prize. I think for FFPC, for the Fantasy Pros, for the mid stakes, I think would be awesome. Now, again, what are you asking for? Are you asking for $250 or something, or maybe your money back? But that's we can say that, but it's $350 times 1,000 like it's not chump change to them either. So, but it would be nice as far as ROI for all these teams, man, that finish maybe 3rd or 4th or even teams that are awesome. And again, there's luck involved, and there's bad luck. If you finish as as the number one seed, and you don't make any money, you lose this week and you lose next week. Well, now you won no money in your league, and you go to and you know how the 3-week race is. It's all it's a crapshoot against a bunch of other really good teams. So you could really make $0 and have really good teams going into it. So that's where this is all that matters right now. Like these next 2 weeks are big. These next 3, 4, 5 weeks are just everything.
So good. I mean, it's of course fun to win money, but the strategy of all this is so interesting just itself. Like I love right now in fantasy football.
Yes. Yeah.
Except for the teams that blew it. Like you're just mad. How did this happen? Like our couple teams there that we've talked about. All right. Let's go through the league here and hopefully give some useful advice and analysis. Team by team is next. First, Mike and Adam here in the deep end. Now a word from our sponsor.
Hey, we're all starting new fantasy leagues all the time. And more often than not, where do we start our fantasy leagues at Player Profiler? On Sleeper. Because it's the best. You can imagine my excitement when I saw Sleeper rolled out Sleeper Picks, baby. And game stacking is the path to positive returns with these pick'em games. Find that sneaky shootout, set most of the players to go over their projection for that week. Or you find a game going to get dragged into the mud and take every member of the passing game for less than their projections that week. And if you pick up to 8, that's how you 100x your payout on Sleeper. It's called the Hail Mary. So if you use promo code Underworld, you get a $100 instant deposit match. Check out Sleeper's terms and conditions for details. These Sleeper picks are live in over 25 states. Yeah, buddy.
Here we go. I mean, a lot of these teams are on buys. We've mentioned 6 teams this week, starting with Buffalo, AFC East. Bills, another maddening loss. They're the best 6-6 team ever. The team a couple of years ago was the best 6-loss team ever, point differential. The 2004 Bills were the best team ever to miss the playoffs. What else do you need? Gabe Davis. I mean, Gabe Davis is still Gabe Davis. He still exists, at least. You have some a 0 week, and just it's quiet sometimes, but could be an interesting guy to have, Adam. As you try to get different here, once you make the sprint.
Yeah, their offense looks fantasy. I could talk about the Bills all day, but fantasy wise, their offense looks back. Even Josh said last week, like he was fired up during the Jets game, saying he feels like he's back. He's certainly back. Gabe Davis, I said bench him everywhere against the Jets. I said start him as much as you could this week. Shootouts are great for Gabe Davis. So he could be an interesting piece down the stretch for sure. And also watching too to see if Josh Allen can be the QB1 for the 4th year in a row in points per game. That'd be a really cool feat for him to have and to kind of go down in fantasy football lore.
You could talk about the Bills all day. I should try that.
That's right. That'd be fun.
It's fun sometimes, but now everybody wants the coach fired, and it's just monotonous. Not as interesting as it could be. But that's my job to tweak. Buffalo at Kansas City in Week 14. Nobody in NFL playoff history has had a better game as a receiver than Davis in the Bills' fateful loss there in 2021. Miami. We mentioned the last couple of weeks, Jeff Wilson. Don't forget about Wilson, even though there's so many other players in the Dolphin mix there in the running back. He's a great stash, and we saw him get plenty of usage here. We'll see if Achane is back. They're in Washington this week, but you want to have Wilson around if you can afford it.
Definitely got to have him around. I mean, he's no Achane, he's no Mostert, but he's close. He's been there before. He knows the offense. They always get 2 backs. He didn't have any type of a smash. I think with 11 fantasy points, which sometimes is fine, right? And your RB2 spot, man, give me those 11 and kind of move on. So yes, you certainly want him. And if Achane is out again, you could certainly start Jeff Wilson this week in a pinch, especially with all the bye weeks, like you said, and the injuries. I'm always excited starting any Dolphins player. I always think that they could score at any moment or just get heavily involved. So start Jeff Wilson.
Raheem Mostert did not have a great game. I mean, it looked like kind of a bust well into the second half against the Jets, but he gets in twice and saves his day there. And that was much needed because many of us have ridden Mostert here toward the playoffs. We'll see what happens now, though, because it has looked at times like he might be wearing out. He's older. A lot of people have said the same thing. New England, I just wonder how you feel about Ramondre Stevenson here. I mean, it's a lost season, but their game Sunday, they lost 10-7, and Stevenson was RB7 for the week in the league. Like, there's some life with him. Do you want to start Stevenson? Do you feel like you have to? What's your look at it?
It's probably a little bit of both. I mean, snap share 78%, rush share 68%. I mean, he's out there a bunch. He's got that spike week upside of there when he can get all those catches. He's, for a big guy, a big playability. We saw it against the Bills. I'm fine starting him. Obviously, you're never going to love the game script because I don't think they're ever going to be a favorite. Although they might have been against the Giants, but I don't think they're ever going to be a favorite like the rest of the year. They might have a Jets game still on the schedule, I'm fine. I'm fine starting him.
I think they were getting points against the Giants. 3.5, maybe that went the other way. I forget. I think they're about a 6-point underdog this week at home against the Chargers, which says a lot.
Right.
The Jets, I mentioned Mostert in that Black Friday game. Same for Garrett Wilson. It's stressful with these guys, but Wilson, I want to keep hoping and starting him.
Stressful is the great way to put it, but with him and Breece Hall, you got to start those guys. Breece Hall gets there on receiving usually because there's just no running lanes. The offensive line isn't very good. Teams are stacking the box against the worst quarterback play you've ever seen. You're starting to get Garrett Wilson. You're starting Breece Hall and hoping that one of these touches that they can take it to the house.
Right. Hall, Wilson, and Mostert on the other side in a game where it looked like all was lost. They all ended up total of 4 touchdowns between those guys. AFC North, Baltimore is on bye. Zay Flowers, the wide receiver, 7 in week 12. Keaton Mitchell, more touches too. I mean, we're kind of rolling along here, 9-3 in the 1 seed in the AFC. Interesting schedule for Baltimore. Out of the bye, they have the Rams at Jacksonville on a Sunday night, at San Francisco on a Monday night, Miami, and then Pittsburgh in week 18. Very interesting team.
I love it. I love the players on that team. I've got a lot of Zay. I got a lot of J.K. Dobbins. Can I say his name? I got a lot of Lamar Jackson, but it's fun. They're usually in a lot of these shootouts at the end of the year. Sunday night was a fun game. I'm watching the game. I'm thinking it's over. I got Zay in a big, can I say FFWC league, and was down by 4, and bang, a rushing touchdown out of nowhere. We'll take it. That's the type of upside that this offense has: explosiveness, more for Zay, more for Lamar. Interesting about Edwards, he's kind of going down. Our boy Keaton Mitchell in playing time is getting up and up more and more every single week. So that's good for the Keaton Mitchell owners, not so great for the Gus Edwards guys. It's almost like Gus Edwards is just in there now for straight short yardage and goal line work, right? Which he's been very, very good at. So I think the arrow's up for Keaton Mitchell, arrow's up for Zay Flowers with Andrews out. And the pass game schedule down the stretch, like you said, looks very good.
It's just not hitting with Jackson, though, in fantasy. I mean, too many weeks where it's 12 points, this one too, and there's turnovers often, and it's kind of just disappointing. You don't see him get out. You see Justin Fields get out last night. Like that's what it looks like. That's what it looked like with Lamar Jackson when he was, 3 years ago or so. But rarely this year have we really seen him. I mean, teams are certainly prepared for him at this point, but I don't know. Something has been different for a couple of years, I think, on Jackson. Maybe he's bigger. I don't know what it is. More reluctant to run. I've never sort of subscribed to a theory, but eye test. Something there is just not the same. Cincinnati, Jamar Chase, 4 for 81 in their game against Pittsburgh with Jake Browning. It's a wide receiver 3. Do you have to play Jamar Chase?
Oh, man. Unfortunately, yeah. I mean, Higgins is coming back. No, you definitely do not have to play T. Higgins. In fact, I think I have a league that's very important, and I don't think I am playing T. Higgins. Chase, I mean, he had one, maybe 2 catches last week on deflections where he luckily caught the ball. I mean, he's so good, but some of these quarterbacks are so bad. And but I think you still do have to start him now to maybe get you through. Now, if we're talking a 3-week race and you're really looking for that 30 or 40 point game to win it all, maybe you can for benching him because maybe everyone else won't.
That is Monday night at Jacksonville, which will make Higgins really a tough puzzle if his status is in doubt. There's certainly arguments against playing him, like you said. Cleveland, David Njoku is having a nice season. All the quarterback turmoil with the Browns. Tight end 9 in points per game. Backup quarterbacks not killing him. So at least you've gotten a good season out of Njoku, which we've been waiting for, consistency for a few years.
Yeah, you said it earlier, cheapies when it comes to a lot of the tight end position, man, especially in tight end premium. If you can, those cheapies are gold, man. Those little 3-yard out routes, like even when they're tackled immediately, you absolutely love it. And that's what he's been getting. He's been kind of a target monster there, double-digit points again. And he has a great matchup with the Rams this week as far as tight end production. They're number 29 against tight ends. So fire up Njoku. I mean, unless you got like especially there's some tight ends on bye. I know Kincaid's on bye. He's been doing really well as of late. But unless you maybe have like Kelsey or Kittle or Laporta, I could see starting Njoku over everybody else.
Another one of those guys in that mix might be Pat Freiermuth, who had a big game for Pittsburgh. Of all the skill guys with the Steelers, thinking Najee Harris, Warren, Deontay Johnson, Pickens, and Freiermuth, who's the one you're happiest right now to have on your roster?
It's interesting you say that. Like Freiermuth was a guy that was dropped in some spots on waivers maybe a couple of weeks ago. Teams had maybe needed to move on. I mean, in tight end premium, I would never move on from a guy that you picked in the top 10 rounds that's on the IR. I mean, he's coming back. So Freiermuth's a guy that I like seeing because I picked him up in Kentucky in a league. I picked him up in the FFPC in a league. So when I go and I see him, like, oh, sweet, especially new play callers, and they immediately force feed Freiermuth the ball. I mean, he's a really good tight end. So he's the guy for me that I find that I'm most excited about.
I'll say Warren, but they're all pretty much the same for me. Like, do I have to start this guy? And I'm not sort of the chorus that always just tells you how much better Jaylen Warren is than Najee Harris. I mean, I can only take so much of that. They're completely different levels of prospects. Harris is now kind of underrated, I think. But again, the RB2 point you made about Jeff Wilson, like if you had to start Jaylen Warren, okay. Right. And they are a 5.5 point favorite this week at home against Arizona. If they win, they'll be 8-4. Pittsburgh. The Bills and the Bengals have ruined the AFC playoff picture. We're looking at the Steelers and the Browns. It looked like it was just a dream season in the conference. For the matchups are going to be insane. And I got Minshew in now, and
Chargers too.
Chargers too. Yeah. Stroud isn't even in right now. Like just. It's got to change, Adam. It's got to change. Speaking of Stroud, Houston, the receivers are great. Devin Singletary getting targets in this game against Jacksonville. Always in Buffalo. You and I argued about his quality. He was never a receiving threat. I mean, PFF rated him the worst running back in the league one year in receiving, but Houston is really leaning on him.
They are, and it's working for them. It's clicking. I mean, he's getting the work. I mean, this Houston team is just fun. I mean, I was talking with Jack. He's my co-host on my full-time fantasy podcast, and he was talking about, like, is Tank Dell a 1-2 turn pick next year? I'm like, oh, first of all, don't even start talking about next year, and second of all, don't start slandering my guy Nico Collins. Okay, I love Nico Collins, but it's like a perfect fit. Nico's the outside alpha, size, speed. You got Tank Dell, the quick. I mean, they're fun. Stroud looks poised. He's always poised. He's always with his eyes downfield. So I love this team. I wish they had a first round pick for their sake next season. But yeah, no, I think you're starting all these guys moving forward, including Singletary, because he's been the guy even with Pierce back.
1-2 turn.
I know it was a little crazy. Stroud's leading. We have a top 10 team in the FFWC. I'll just say it. So right now overall. So, and Stroud's on that team. So, he's loving the whole Texans offense right now.
2-3 turn maybe.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't think he's the best receiver on it. I mean, you might have an Eagles, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith's situation. So something like that.
I would rather have Dell than Collins. I think Dell is better than Collins.
Ooh.
Sorry. I could be wrong. Indianapolis. So this morning we heard Jonathan Taylor injured his thumb. And the way Ian Rappaport worded it, his status going forward is in doubt. Like, what is that going to do? It's not in doubt for week 13. It's in doubt going forward. It's another injury. We've had a lot of these this year. I don't remember this happening very often before, where you don't even know of the injury until the middle of the next week. And suddenly, it's happened with Achane. Like, he had a huge game, and then he went to IR, right? Yep. Like, we didn't even know what's going on with that. So I don't know if that means anything, but it's frustrating when you come out of the week as a fan and a player, you think you're all set, and then suddenly, well, maybe not. So we are recording today, middle of the day. We've just heard the Taylor news, and maybe there's something different on this by the time you're watching or listening, but at least it's a concern right now. For sure. And listen, I'm just thankful that they told us today and not like Thursday or Friday after the first week. Not that there's a lot of help you can really get from the waiver run this week anyways, but yeah, and didn't happen with Taylor before where like he got like hurt during the game and then he didn't really play the second half of a game maybe. And then you find out midweek. Yes. You know, but yeah, so you're way better at this stuff with the posts and the tweets and who's reliable and what reading between the lines. Like that's the whole thing. It's his status moving forward. Like that's the horrifying. Are you going to put him on IR again? Like like they're in a playoff hunt. It's really, really scary because I have a 5K that's cruising with Jonathan Taylor, and I have the one main event team I got through that's got a bye, top 2 seed, not a bye, but they're already through, and it's got Jonathan Taylor on it. So I'm just crossing my fingers, man. It's a thumb injury. Would that necessarily be like a multi-week injury for a running back? I would, if it's broken, maybe, but I feel like a sprain, you could just like people have played with sprained thumbs before. I think broken's a different story, but just tape it up and let's go. Let's go. Jacksonville. I drafted him a lot. We've talked about him. You tend to give me credit for Travis Etienne sometimes. I have a very uneasy feeling. I have had an uneasy feeling about Etienne. This game against Houston, they're lining up 4th and goal at the 1. I'm like, just don't give it to Etienne. I need his points. I feel like I should want them to do it. But like, there's no way he's going to score. It's a pitch play. And he just swallowed up. Yeah. My one main event team that's through with Louis G is super good. Taylor is on it too, actually. But Etienne has been a big cog on that team. And the team is very deep. Last week, I just didn't really want to play him. I don't know. Should I get over myself here when it comes to him and just go with it? I mean, he's probably like a top across all sites. He's going to be projected to be a top 5 guy this week. Who do they have? Bengals. Yeah. I mean, they could run away with that game at home against the Bengals. No pun intended, run away with the game. But yeah, I mean, you're going to start him. He hasn't been awesome the last couple of weeks compared to like how he was at the beginning of the year. So plus Dearness Johnson is kind of getting a little bit more than you would like. As an Etienne owner, but I think he'll be fine. They're really good. They're kind of, especially with all the teams kind of in the AFC kind of falling off. I think you'll be happy to have him down the stretch. Johnson looks good too, and they are giving him work. So I wouldn't think that would necessarily change, but Etienne is still getting work too. He went out of that game as well against Houston and then went back in with a chest injury. They said Tennessee. I don't want to spend much time on Tennessee. Very low ceiling on everybody except Derrick Henry. Henry can get there for you like last week, but just continues to be really low ceiling on the Titans otherwise. Yeah, and that was just a matchup. Like they had a really good matchup going into the week. You knew Derrick Henry was going to kind of go off. He eats in those matchups. But other than that, you don't really like anything else. They have the Colts this week, by the way, Tennessee. AFC West, Denver wins again at Houston this week. Against the Browns, 134 passing yards, nobody with more than 3 catches. Javonte Williams, 10 PPR points. Maybe the matchup will turn things up for the Broncos. They're in it. I mean, they've been on a winning streak here and still waiting to see if there's maybe some smash potential in their passing game, but it's not really happening too often. Sutton a couple times. Yeah, they're in it. They got a nice matchup against Houston this week, 20th against running backs in fantasy. So a game that might even shoot out. Javonte catches the ball a little bit too, averaging around 3 catches a game. So it'd be nice to I got a couple teams with Javonte that got through. It'd be nice to see him get going. I think they want him to get going. So I think he could have a big game this week. That main event team I mentioned is Etienne, Jonathan Taylor, Javonte Williams, Mostert, and Achane. Ooh. And like beautiful. Pick 2, right? And the receivers are Lamb, Garrett Wilson, Debo, somebody else good. Like it's
Maybe.
just not an easy team to start, lineups, but it's a good problem.
That's right.
Kansas City, one of those guys that's come on is Rashee Rice. Finally, they used him.
They used him. Justin Watson gets in the end zone again early in the game too. Like, oh man, he's going to smash. And his only catch of the game, I think, was that 3 or 4 yard touchdown, which stinks. But he might be their red zone guy. I mean, he's scored 2 or 3 games in a row now from inside the red zone there. So I think they really like it. It's definitely 3 because he score, bye week, touchdown. So you could start him in a pinch if you needed to over even a guy like T. Higgins or something like that. But yes, Rashee Rice getting involved as well. Everyone has that kind of upside every week. Not everyone. Those 2 guys do. Kelsey's obviously still the guy there.
24-18 is the implied game script, the implied score for their Sunday night game at Green Bay. Might want to check weather on Green Bay, as it will be December by Sunday night. I'm not sure what it is, but 24 points for the Chiefs against the Packers. I feel like first instinct on that is that it's low.
Yeah.
Surprisingly. Vegas, I mean, they have not scored a lot this year. I'm aware of that. Vegas, early action in that game you just mentioned for Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers as well. You see what the Raiders are trying to do. I mean, they could not get there against Kansas City, but trying to feed Adams. They're not throwing to Jacobs now. It seems pretty obvious what the Raiders are going for. Bye week this week.
Yeah, bye week this week. Not good for, Adams and Jacobs owners. I mean, Myers has kind of been out of it. He had a good game last week, scored, but he's kind of been the odd man out since Garoppolo got benched or went down or whatever. So, they're not – the upside hasn't been there really. I mean, we've been talking about Adams all season. It's just that smash upside's kind of gone as far as all those receivers taking the 1-2 turn. Maybe him and Garrett Wilson might be the 2 that just week in and week out just don't have that massive ceiling.
The Chargers are steaming toward a coaching change. Austin Eckler, just a sad season. Not throwing to him as often. He's fumbling now. Are you worried about Eckler? Sort of, this is it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, he's up there in age. He's up there in touches the last couple of years. He's undersized. They're not going to throw him the ball, which was interesting because you didn't really know. There was always that question like, what would happen with the new offensive coordinator when he came in, and maybe he's going to take over as the coach. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, he's a lock to be. Him and Christian McCaffrey the last 2 years have been like those are the top 2 guys, and now he's kind of drifting in kind of the projections, and you're not as excited to start him as maybe you once were.
Kellen Moore, who came from Dallas, we moved to Dallas here. Dallas is rolling. Even Brandon Cooks. Now, their implied total on Thursday night against Seattle is 27.5 against the Seahawks. In that one, just wheels up everywhere. Yeah,
Brandon Cooks is another guy that was, I don't know if you saw in some of your leagues, available on waivers kind of mid-season, was doing absolutely nothing, banged up a little bit, but now they're spreading the ball around. Yeah, they're an offense and they're a team that's, I think, poised. They get to play in a dome this time of year, which is really great. Even Pollard, getting signs of life out of him the last 2 weeks. So I think the offense is starting to really, really come around.
After Seattle, they go Philadelphia, Buffalo, Miami.
There you go. Whew, shootouts galore.
Potentially. The Giants on bye this week. Just not anything happening here. Not even beyond Saquon Barkley, pretty much including Barkley. Another guy, do you have to play him? I mean, you probably have to be pretty good to not this week. He's off this week. But another one of these Barkley seasons, like maybe 2 years ago, was it? Where it was 2 years ago. Last year they were in the playoffs, where you just don't really see the ceiling very often.
Yeah, the way you felt about Etienne at the goal line is the way I feel about Barkley. Like, you just know, the whole world knows, all right, it's going to Barkley somehow here at the 2 yard line, and he's going to just get eaten a lot. Sure enough, 8 guys are all over him all the time. I think Barkley's too good and gets too much work. Too much usage to not start. I don't know who they have coming out of the bye, but yeah, it's just gonna be ugly every single week with him.
Philadelphia is super easy. I mean, you know what you're getting from everybody, very consistent. One thing that might be interesting is with Dallas Goedert out, they really didn't replace Dallas Goedert. It's just more different. I mean, Zacchaeus scores a touchdown in this game. You see more receivers in the mix. So I don't think it means much to go looking for who's going to take Dallas Goedert's role, because it's not going to be a tight end, it seems.
Right, and Goddard might be back this week. He's trying to play. He's vying to play this week. And if not this week, because they had the Niners. Yes, Philly is in the Niners this week. They're thinking maybe next week against Dallas. So we'll see how that goes. I'm glad they didn't put him on the IR. You get that one extra game out of him. The bye week really helped him there. So I held on to him in some leagues where I had him. But you're right. It's not no one else. There's no other tight end worth starting there. Jalen Hurts gets there with 5 touchdowns in this last game, but Devonta Smith, AJ Brown all score, but don't have really big games. Even AJ Brown fumbles and doesn't lose the 2 points there, but we won't go into that.
I'm not here to argue with that. This division is very predictable up and down. Washington steamrolled on Thanksgiving. I think you know what you have here with Washington, the way they spread the ball around. Keep in mind, I doubt many people are very confident in really anybody with Washington, but in the fantasy playoff, they've got the Niners and the Jets on the schedule there. So not great.
No, not great. Howell's been fine. Howell's a nice replacement fill-in this week, but it's interesting. He's gonna throw for. She's like top 3 in passing yards, maybe even number 1. And there's like no receivers that are having great years. Like they're all like wide receiver 3s. So it's just kind of interesting the way they've spread the ball around.
Chicago, my question is not like what to do in terms of fantasy, because again, we know Roschon Johnson, that's a development from last night, really taking over the backfield, it seemed. But if you want you might have a thought on him. You're big on him. And Justin Fields' future is the real question with the Bears.
Yes. I mean, Justin Fields did not look great last night, but it was nice. Roschon Johnson looked good. He had 4 for 40 receiving in the first half. I don't know if he had anything in the second half, but he looked explosive, looked good. I think when Foreman gets back, Foreman will take over that role, because I think he's just a rock-solid running back. But Dynasty, you might want to kind of kick the tires on Roschon. Maybe you can get him as a throw-in in a trade, because I really think that he's the best back on the team long-term. But yeah, Fields is going to be interesting to see what they do. They're going to have a top pick somewhere up in there, I think. And so are they going to move on? Are they going to stay with Fields and give him some weapons? That'll be interesting to see what they think.
Chicago's backfield for me this year has been that shell game where you have the 3 shells and the ball is under one of them, and the 3 shells are Foreman, Johnson, and Herbert. And somebody does this. Like Foreman was a healthy scratch early in the season, but then suddenly he's awesome. And then, Herbert goes away, he comes back, but it's Roschon Johnson. Yeah. Just like they keep moving that ball around with the Bears backfield. Detroit, Jared Goff is starting to wobble. Not hurting his skill guys too much, but I think the ceiling is lower across the board on the Lions, unless he turns it back around.
Yeah, he didn't need to turn it back around. I know he's historically, maybe it's just with the Lions, he's much better at home than he is on the road. I know he averages at home slightly over 2 touchdowns a game at home. So it'd be nice to see, some of that probably has to do with the, obviously being at home and obviously playing in a dome and bad weather is always nice for that. But his schedule isn't too hard. He only has one bad matchup. That's the last week of the year, and that's Dallas. And that might be a shootout. And that's in Dallas in a dome. He's also at Minnesota in a dome, home. So I think they'll get back going. New Orleans, Chicago, Denver. Nothing scary on the schedule. And again, weapons galore. Jameson Williams is starting to look a little bit better too.
At New Orleans this week, -4 and 46. So 25-21. Nice implied total on the road for the Lions, 25. Green Bay, who beat Detroit on Thanksgiving. Jordan Love, some really nice moments in that game. Can you be optimistic here? Kansas City at home Sunday night. That defense has been good. I've been a sort of a bull case guy when it comes to Jordan Love. It's gotten harder, at least before the last couple of weeks, but guys need time and he's getting experience and maybe we're getting somewhere with him.
I need to be no one's more optimistic about Jordan Love right now. I've got a 5K team with Allen on a bye, and I'm just Love is my other option. Chiefs defense has been really good, like you said. The weather, the situation, but you know what? They went from like, oh, this team's kind of to like, okay, these receivers are kind of Jaden Reed and Watson and They're young, they're fast, they're explosive. Like, okay, we could see this kind of working here. For Love's sake, I wish Aaron Jones was around because he's a much better passing back than Dylan. But yeah, I think Love's getting a little bit better as the season's gone on, and so has his receivers.
I had to look. 40 degrees Sunday in Green Bay, cooler at night. Right now it's only 19, but
as long as it doesn't rain, no rain, we'll be all right.
We have not had snow yet where I live. South of Buffalo, yesterday was the day. The thunder snow. I mean, maybe a foot or more in some places, but just in the city and up, it is literally, we've not had one day yet as we approach December where we wake up and there's snow on the ground. It's really strange. Yeah, it's good. I agree with that. Minnesota, the shine is somewhat off the Pastronaut after this game last night, but I'm watching last night, really needing numbers from him is who he is, right? Like, at least he's going to sling it. And even with all those turnovers, they're not taking him out. There was never any thought for me last night of that. And he keeps throwing, not a high scoring game, but I feel like that's why when you saw him get traded there, he does kind of have the style, and he's going to run a little bit too, where maybe he can save you if you have Hawkinson or Jefferson now that he'll be a couple more weeks away. Apparently they're on bye this week.
Yeah, I always find it interesting, man. How can you come in and not know anything about the offense and be good, and then everything about maybe not everything. It's only been a couple of weeks, and you just look horrific. So interesting how that stuff happens. And that's one of the coolest nicknames ever is the Pastronaut, by the way. But yeah, you just hope that they were talking about maybe benching him last night. The coach was non-committal moving forward. I think they're going to stick with him. But yeah, get into that bye week, come on out, and get Justin Jefferson the ball. It's all we need. Did you get any Jefferson teams through, Mike?
I don't think so. Did you? I
did get one, but I don't even remember. I don't remember if it was a third or a fourth seed. So that is going to obviously not be helpful. But if it's a 1 seed or a 2 seed and I can get into the race with him, that would be awesome.
I have a couple of cup teams, but not Jefferson. I don't think so. Atlanta wins. Bijan Robinson looks great. They mix in Tyler Algier, Cordero Patterson too. Any interest in Patterson?
You know what's funny? I was just texting some buddies about waivers and stuff, and I'm like, man, am I missing anything? Are there anybody? Because again, in a lot of these tournaments, everyone's locked that's been dropped. Like, is there any dumpster diving we can do at the running back position? And the only running back I'm seeing is Cordero Patterson. Like, that's the only guy that's available, like, everywhere. That, like, okay, I could see that dummy of a coach, like, getting him more involved or something. I mean, Bijan had his best or second best game of the year. His utilization didn't go up. It wasn't great. He still was under 50% of the carries and all that stuff. So he's just amazing. And when he gets the ball, he's really good. So Patterson's a guy, he's an injury away from one of these top 2 dogs, Algier and Bijan, of getting a much bigger workload. So if you got a couple bucks to spend and a roster spot to fill, although it's hard this time of year, as I go off on a tangent with the roster spots, because you want to carry 2 defenses, probably. You want to carry 2 quarterbacks. You want to carry 2 kickers. Like, there's not much room for Cordero Patterson on a lot of these rosters.
That's right. You cut like wide receiver 6, maybe. You cut a Jerry Jeudy for him if you feel like maybe there's a chance.
Sure.
You could do something like that. But he looked great, I thought, too. Patterson. He's got that explosive style about him that maybe you get lucky if you end up needing him and playing him. Carolina, what a disaster. Frank Reich is fired. Adam Thielen goes 1 for 2 in that game against Tennessee. I thought they only threw the ball to Adam Thielen.
Well, then Frank Reich deserves to get fired. 1 for 2. Come on. I will never say that about my old friend, Frank Reich. Okay. So many childhood memories from my guy, Frank, but I mean, I don't know what's going on with the ownership and the coaching and what quarterback they wanted and the scouting and who they ended up with, but it's been a cluster there like all off season. I don't think Frank Reich was a fan of Bryce Young, not a fan, but I don't think that's the quarterback that he wanted. And I think from there, it's kind of been all downhill.
New Orleans loses in Atlanta. We'll see about Chris Olave's status. He leaves that game early, but not too early. He put up a monster first half. Could have had an incredible game. Could have been a 200-yard game for Olave with their losing in that game if he had stayed on the field. So he's big.
And now if you're looking for waiver darlings for this week, by the way. I mean, Olave's probably out. Shaheed is out, I think. Who's left? Juwan Johnson. If you guys can find, and Juwan Johnson starts heating up in the second half. He's a guy that Carr was in love with in the preseason, told his brother to draft him in fantasy football. Injuries, it didn't quite happen, but now they might have another option. They might have to throw Juwan. So Juwan Johnson's available. Go grab him. Maybe Kirkwood? Like, what's out? I mean, some receiver there is going to have to get these catches. Speaking of receivers, real quick, one team I have as a 2 seed with Justin Jefferson, Fantasy Pros moving through. I have another one where I'm a 3 seed and I got to win to get Jefferson through. Getting Jefferson through is exciting this year, not going to lie.
It is, and part of that is because of the 2-3 turn. Like, who did you end up? Who were the picks there that paid off the best?
Let me see. I can tell you one of the
right. Like who's on those teams that you also won with that might not have been amazing.
I have Jahmyr Gibbs on that team. I've got Hall of Famer Mike Evans at the 5-6 turn or the whatever turn that was. Kyron Williams naturally. Cortland Sutton, who I couldn't stand. This might be my only Cortland Sutton team. Like, the guy just scores every single week. So that's kind of really been it, but Breece Hall hasn't done much. But
speaking of Evans, I mean, 2 more touchdowns for Mike Evans. Good for you. If you took the plunge on him, maybe 4-5 turn, or maybe that was.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. 4-5. Yeah.
For that team. And I mean, I all these older guys, I almost always stay away. And that you win and you lose, right? You lost on McCaffrey if you stayed away from McCaffrey, but you might have won on Eckler, and you lost on Evans because it's just keeps happening.
Yep. No, I get it. It's just no rhyme or reason. And he's on pace, Mike, for the best year of his career at this age with Baker Mayfield, their quarterback. Like, somebody making it make sense.
Arizona dominated by the Rams. They're at Pittsburgh this week. Kyler Murray held in check. Did have a short touchdown run, but really didn't run in this game. Might have only been the one time. Trey McBride, though, still popping. That's super exciting.
Very exciting, young, up-and-coming guy. And here this year to stay, I think, for sure. I didn't get to see much of this game. I was locked into another game at 4:30, Bills game, Bills-Eagles. And so I didn't get to see much, but yeah, the fantasy stats were not there. We need Kyler to get back on track this week.
Kyron Williams, RB1. I can't take it. I know you have him on that team you just listed, but just the ultimate example of how it doesn't matter what the community thinks as much as it matters what the team thinks.
Oh,
and man, like McVay will tell you, and he has. Kyron Williams, when he's back, he's playing, and man, that was the case.
RB2 in points per game behind Christian McCaffrey, like just so crazy.
His team isn't even good.
I know, it doesn't make any sense.
The player's not good, the team's not good, but he's RB2.
It clicks for whatever reason. It clicks because we watched them without him for 5 weeks, and nobody was as good as he was. Now maybe he's better than the 2 guys that were there before, which is most likely possible because they aren't very good either. But it doesn't make any sense. It's just one of those things, man. And then you get other guys that just can't figure it out and can't stay healthy, and who knows.
San Francisco at the Eagles this week, a favorite on the road, by the way. Similar to the Pittsburgh question, Ayuk, Debo, and Kittle, how do you sort of feel having any of these 3 guys on your team right now? I think Ayuk has got to be the number 1, right?
Yeah, Ayuk, you love having them all. Kittle is always way more hit and miss than all the rest of the guys are. But I think the cool thing about having these like underlying metrics and advanced analytics around these days is that if you're in as deep as we are, Ayuk is the receiver against man and Debo's the receiver against zone. And teams that play heavy zone, Debo kills them and vice versa. I think they played Seattle on Thursday, and that was a heavy zone team. So Debo smashed, but Ayuk also got there too because he's just that good and the offense is that good. So I like starting all those. You're not benching any of them, but you're just looking for those kind of metrics, maybe for DFS, maybe for over-under parlays, that type of thing, of the man versus zone to type of stuff. But you like starting them, especially against the Eagles. Eagles pass defense is worst against quarterbacks. I mean, I'm looking at Brock Purdy having a monster game. This could be a fun game to watch.
Seattle to close with. This team is such a bummer.
I mean,
so many players to like, but nobody ever really has a really good game. with Seattle this year. Just easily overmatched against the Niners at Dallas on Thursday night. Do we get what we want in this game from the Seahawks?
No, like at least did you say it's in Dallas? Yes.
Yeah.
Which is bad because you're away from home, but also I'd rather play in a dome than play up in that Seattle, maybe cold and rain, but probably not. I mean, they haven't been, Geno hasn't been good. And DK Metcalf's been dropping balls when he shouldn't be, and Lockett's been banged up all year. Like, they've done. Is Charbonnet starting this week? Do we have?
Well, maybe. I don't know what's new on that as we talk here early on Tuesday, but the Walker injury sounded pretty significant and short week, so maybe. But let's see the guy actually show, right? Charbonnet. I mean, everybody loved him coming into the league, and just we're not getting those highlights from the Seahawks from anybody.
Way too much talent on that team to not be putting up big weeks. I mean, he's I think he's like QB 18. Geno is like, man, you can't be QB 18 with all those weapons.
That's a guy I just really couldn't get to this summer. I just so often, a stack in a best ball draft or something, sometimes sure, but I just could not accept Geno Smith as like really good and prolific. And on the Seahawks, who for years we've just sort of condescended to about how they're just behind the times. And I mean, it's kind of been right, but it's a bummer thinking about these receivers, JSN, all of them, Metcalf, like just come on, let's see a big week. Lockett from somebody. Good of me to mention the names of those players if anybody watching or listening didn't know who I was talking about.
Maybe they'll be forced into something this week. Maybe they'll be forced into a shootout. Let's see.
Turnovers. I don't know. I'm not feeling it when it comes to the Seahawks. Okay. Please, if you would take a moment, like, subscribe, follow, all of that on Twitter at DeepEndFF1, where you'll see links to our shows, maybe ones you've missed. Adam_Krautwurst at Shope Talk. For me, SCHOPPTALK. All right. Any final thoughts?
That's it. Let's go make some money this weekend, Mike.
Week 13. It's big. Glad to have you today. Thanks for being with us, Mike and Adam. See you next time in the deep end.
See you guys.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.